Okay, so remember when we were talking about like feeling kind of manipulated by websites and apps? Well, guess what? There's actually a whole science behind it.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh.
It's fascinating how much psychology goes into the design of these platforms.
Right. And you know that article you sent in, the one about outsmarting those manipulation tactics?
Yeah, that was a good one.
It was. And eye-opening for sure. Like, I always wondered why some websites are so darn cluttered.
Yeah.
Turns out it's not by accident. It's Hick's Law in action.
Exactly. Hick's law basically says that the more choices we're given, the longer it takes us to decide.
Which makes sense, right? When you're bombarded with options.
Exactly. And some companies, they use that to their advantage. They create these things called squeeze pages to kind of like simplify things and nudge you towards a particular action, usually buying something.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So, like, instead of landing on a website's homepage with a million different links and banners and whatnot,
You get straight to the point.
yeah, like, say you click on an ad for, I don't know, blue shirt, and suddenly, bam, you're on this bare bones page with nothing but that blue shirt and a giant buy now button.
Exactly. It's all about streamlining the decision-making process, removing any distractions,
Yeah.
and capitalizing on that desire for a quick and easy solution.
Wow. Sneaky. Okay, so speaking of online shopping, what about all those product reviews we see? Are those playing into this whole manipulation game too?
Ah, yes. The power of social proof. We humans, we're social creatures. We tend to follow the crowd, especially online where it's harder to, like, gauge trustworthiness.
So you're saying those pop-up messages, the ones that say someone in random city just bought this, those aren't always legit.
Not necessarily, no. Those are surprisingly easy to fake. And even when the reviews are genuine, they can still be misleading. Ever heard of astroturfing?
Hmm. Can't say that I have.
Basically, it's creating this illusion of widespread support for a product or service,
Mm-hmm.
often through fake reviews, to make it seem like everyone's loving it.
Wow, that's kind of shady. So, like, how do we know what to believe anymore?
It's all about being a savvy consumer. Look for those verified purchase badges on reviews, the ones that show the person actually bought the product.
Right, right.
And don't just rely on one website. Compare ratings and feedback across multiple platforms to get a more, well-rounded view.
That's good advice. I'll admit I've totally been swayed by a few glowing reviews in the past.
Oh, we've all been there.
Okay, this next tactic is one I know I've fallen for. Commitment and consistency.
Ah, yes, a classic. It plays on our desire to be consistent with our actions. Like, the more we do something, even something small, the more likely we are to continue doing it in the future.
And the article mentioned Booking.com as an example of this, right?
Right. Their loyalty program is a great example. It's cleverly designed to reward bookings, not necessarily spending.
Oh, interesting. So it's not about how much you spend, but how often you book with them.
Exactly. So even if you're only booking, say, 1 or 2 nights at a time, you're still racking up points, moving up those loyalty tiers, and that can make you more likely to stick with them, even if there might be cheaper options elsewhere.
It's like they've got you hooked on that valued customer feeling.
Hmm.
Fascinating. Okay, this next one is kind of lighthearted, but also I can totally relate the IKEA effect.
Ah, yes. The IKEA effect.
Oh.
I think we've all experienced that one at some point or another.
Right. It's like you spend all day assembling this complicated piece of furniture, and even if it's a little wobbly, you feel this weird sense of pride like, I made this.
Precisely. The idea is that when we invest our own time and effort into something, we tend to overvalue it, even if it's not objectively better than something we could have bought pre-assembled.
And it's not just furniture. It can be anything we put effort into. Like you were saying, that emotional attachment, that effort, it can really cloud our judgment, huh? It's not just about the thing itself. It's like we're buying into the whole experience.
Right. It's that sense of investment. And you see this in the digital world too, like with online tools that are super customizable. People can spend hours tweaking settings, creating templates, really making it their own.
Oh, tell me about it. I've lost entire evenings to my digital planner.
Right. And because you've put all that time and energy into personalizing it, you're more likely to see it as valuable, even if like a simpler tool, a simpler tool could have done the trick.
Totally. It's
Right.
like these apps and websites are tapping into our inner interior designer or something.
Yeah.
But speaking of getting sucked into the digital world, this next tactic is, well, it gets me every time, the cashless effect.
Oh, yeah. That's a big one. Everywhere these days with all the online transactions and everything.
Right. Like when you're playing a game on your phone and they want to charge you like 99 cents for an upgrade.
It doesn't feel like real money, does it?
Exactly. Like
Yeah.
I'm not handing over actual cash, so whatever.
Exactly. But those small amounts, they add up so fast. And the thing is, we don't experience that same like psychological friction that we do when we're spending physical cash.
It's so true. Like my brain just doesn't register it the same way, you know?
Exactly.
And before you know it, you've spent 20 bucks on like virtual vegetables for your farm game. Speaking of things that make it hard to track spending, can we talk about subscriptions for a sec? Because seriously, is it just me or has everything become a subscription these days?
Oh, it's definitely a trend, and for good reason. Businesses love subscriptions because that recurring revenue is so predictable.
Hmm.
But yeah, it can be a lot for consumers to keep track of.
That's putting it mildly. I swear sometimes canceling a subscription feels like I'm trying to like break out of an escape room or something. And the article mentions something called lifetime value or LTV, which really stood out to me.
Ah, yes, lifetime value. It's basically a way for companies to measure the total amount of money they expect to make from you, the customer, over the entire course of your relationship with them.
So basically, the longer they can keep you subscribed, the higher your LTV is.
Exactly, which is a big part of why many companies make it such a pain to cancel,
Mm.
because they know that people tend to stick with the status quo, even if it's not the absolute best deal.
Because it's easier than going through the hassle of canceling.
Exactly. Like, if it ain't broke, don't
Look.
fix it, right?
Right.
Except in this case, it might be a little bit broken, but we're just too busy to notice or too overwhelmed to do anything about it.
It's true. So what can we do? I mean, we've talked about all these subtle ways companies try to manipulate us online. How do we fight back? How do we like level up our defenses?
Right.
Right? Like where do we even start?
Honestly, awareness is half the battle,
So just knowing about these
which
tactics.
makes you so much less susceptible to them, yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about like practical steps? Like next time I'm tempted by a squeeze page, what should I actually do?
Okay, so you find yourself on one of those pages, right?
Mm.
No navigation bar in sight, just a big buy now button screaming at you. Don't give in right away.
Okay, so resist the urge to impulse buy.
Exactly. Open up a new tab, do a quick search for the product or service, see what else is out there.
Yeah.
Shop around a bit.
Don't let him back you into a corner.
Exactly. And when it comes to reviews, oh man, be discerning.
Mm.
Those verified purchase badges, those are your friends.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be on the lookout for those now.
They're not foolproof, but they're a good start.
Mhm.
And again, don't rely on just one site.
Compare, compare, compare.
Exactly. See what people are saying on different platforms. Get the full picture.
Makes sense. And I imagine this is extra important with subscriptions, right?
Oh, absolutely. Subscriptions are tricky because they rely on our tendency to set it and forget it.
Oh, yeah.
Those little recurring charges just fly under the radar. So one thing you can do is set reminders, like on your phone or your calendar or whatever.
Reminders to review your subscriptions.
Yeah, exactly. Once a month or however often makes sense for you. And when that reminder pops up, ask yourself, am I really using this?
Because let's be honest, sometimes we hold on to subscriptions just because canceling is such a pain.
It's true. But sometimes hitting that cancel button, it's the best thing you can do for your wallet and your sanity.
So in the end, it's about being informed, questioning everything, and yeah, maybe breaking a few subscription chains along the way.
Totally. It's about taking back your power as a consumer.
I like that. Mindful, not manipulated.
Exactly.
Well, I've got to say, I'm feeling a lot more empowered now that we've like deconstructed all of this. Awareness really is key.
100%.
And hey, listeners, we want to hear from you. What online experience made you stop and go, wait a minute, are they trying to play me? Hit us up on social media. Let's compare notes. Until then, happy and mindful browsing.